What is up, everybody? Matt Parrino here, nyupsyracuse.com, coming to you with a special guest today. I'm very, very excited to have ESPN's Kevin Connors with me. Kevin, huge Bills fan. Thank you so much for carving out a little time for me today.
Matt, my pleasure, man. It's good to be talking Bills football and not about everything else that's going on right now.
I know. Seriously. I mean, it's, everything that I've heard from people and fans over the last couple of weeks has been thank yous for the distraction. It's just something that I'm kind of honored to be able to give them because, I know for myself, my wife and I, we've started the Marvel universe journey from Iron Man all the way through. We're about halfway through right now, and that's provided a nice distraction for us. But for a lot of sports fans, I mean, it's a good time to be a Buffalo Bills fan. I mean, how excited are you about the kind of not only direction that we're going with the last couple of weeks of this offseason, but we're talking about the last, 3 years now with Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott.
I mean, to me, that's been the most exciting part is that this kind of hasn't come together via trades and getting ready-made guys. Stefon Diggs, obviously, notwithstanding, this has kind of been a process where we've built it from the ground up, and that includes the front office and the head coach. And, so many of the vital parts of this team are guys that were drafted or players that were kind of taken a chance on, and they've succeeded. So, to me, in a lot of ways, it's been great to see. I equated it not too long ago to Yankee fans will appreciate this, kind of when the Yankees dynasty was being built and the core four was put together. And obviously the Yankees had means to go out and get other pieces to sort of fill out the team, but the core of the team were kind of guys that came through the system. So for me, that's one of the most exciting parts of this.
I mean, obviously, you call a lot of highlights, in the NFL, and one guy that has made a ton of them over the last 2 years, and really the last 5 years, is Stefon Diggs. I mean, if you go back to the Minnesota Miracle, I mean, that's one of the pinnacle moments of the NFL, the league over the last decade. He's now in red, white, and blue. I know my thoughts on the Stefon Diggs deal. I thought that the compensation, while some feared that it was a little bit overpaying for what you were getting, I was on board with it because to watch a guy or a team in the other conference, the NFC, go out there and get a top flight wide receiver for their young quarterback and DeAndre Hopkins for Kyler Murray. I think you had to make a move to get somebody of that ilk for Josh Allen. So as a Bills fan, I mean, you're thrilled. It doesn't matter what it costs, right?
Look, I mean, and you make the Arizona Cardinals analogy, and we're farther ahead than they are. I mean, we were a playoff team last year, and I think this front office group has kind of made it clear that they were going to build and do things the right way. They got rid of some players who, though possibly still productive, were not going to be part of things long term. And some big name guys, and they stuck with draft picks and they maneuvered within the draft. And then, look, there comes a point in time, Matt, where you've got to say that either we're going to go for this or not. And to me, this was an opportunity to get a guy who is a guaranteed Pro Bowl caliber player, all pro caliber player. You could have used the 22nd pick on T. Higgins or any number of college players and not gotten someone who is a sure thing like Diggs is. He's not that old. He has a team-friendly contract. Those second and third and sixth round picks or whatever else was part of it, to me, are, who cares?
Right.
The first round pick was a big one, but you're getting a sure thing back for a quarterback who needs to be ready to take the next step. To me, it was a no-brainer. I've read the anonymous GMs who said the Bills got fleeced. Maybe 3 years ago, if the Bills make this trade, you say that. But if he's a guy who can help get you past where you were last year, which, by the way, was on the verge of winning a playoff game, you got to go for it.
Yeah, it's that game in particular has been on the NFL Network the last couple of weeks. It's been on a few times, and Bills fans have had to go back and kind of relive that. And I've gone back and watched it a few times now, and I think that you're right on in terms of where the Bills are to kind of make a move like this. They were right there. I thought Josh Allen played a lot better than I think the instant reaction to his game may have the story that may have told. I thought he played better than that. And I think that if you have a guy at the quarterback position like the Bills do in Josh Allen, that you believe in, you want to, surround him with these kind of high profile players, guys that, Sean McDermott said it, guys that are trustworthy, that can go out there and make plays. And I think Stefon Diggs does that. Now for you, you have a very interesting story, and I want to tell people a little bit about, how you became a Bills fan. And I'll let you obviously tell the story as well, but you grew up in Long Island and you had a little non-traditional way of coming upon your team, because the Jets and the Giants are obviously so big down there. How did you become a Bills fan?
And my dad is from Central New York. He's from the Utica area, a small town called Ilion that I know a lot of upstate New York people know. And he was a Bills fan growing up. He was a Bills fan back in the AFL days. And so, and he still is very, very proud of, being a big AFL fan and obviously being a Bills fan. So, growing up as a kid, he was a Bills fan, so I was a Bills fan. And you're right, being a Bills fan on Long Island in the heart of Jets and Giants country, when the Jets had their moments in the 80s, and then obviously the Giants were great in the 90s. Giants were good in the 80s too. It wasn't easy. And then of course playing the Giants in Super Bowl 25 when I was in that sweet spot of when it means so much to you as a young fan. And it was a lot of fun. Obviously, I got to see the Bills a lot. Normally, I wouldn't have, but because they were so good, we got to see them in national games a lot. So it was a great time to be a Bills fan and enjoy so much of the success that we had.
I spent my first 32 years in Western New York, Buffalo area, before going to Las Vegas for a couple of years. So I got to experience what it's like to be a Bills fan in town, because I grew up that way. Obviously, when you join the beat, the dynamic becomes a little bit different between you and the team. But, my family's roots are in the Buffalo Bills. I mean, this community. And so and I was standing around. I remember Super Bowl 25, my grandfather's living room, holding hands with our entire extended family, because that was, people don't understand like what that moment was like for this city and for fans of this team around the world. I mean, what was that memory like for you? Obviously, you probably watched it with your dad somewhere.
Watched it on our, in our living room. I can clearly remember, going to church that morning, saying a few extra prayers for the Bills to come through. And obviously, I mean, look, you can, every fan base can tell you that this team that didn't win it was the best team to never win a Super Bowl. In my mind, I don't think that there's too much of a comparison to the fact that those Bills teams were the best teams to never win a Super Bowl. They played really well in Super Bowl 25, I thought. The Giants dominated time of possession in the third quarter. And then, look, we're in a spot to beat Parcells, Belichick, Lawrence Taylor, and that great defense. We've got a 47-yard field goal to win the Super Bowl, and it doesn't go our way. So it was heartbreaking, of course, and again, for being a young fan, it was that much more meaningful. But it doesn't take away from me what those 4 runs to the Super Bowls were, because it was such a dominant team, and in sports, the margin's really thin, and it didn't go their way. I always get a big kick too out of the people who say, Jim Kelly's not that. He's not one of the greats. He never won anything. Thurman Thomas never won anything. I mean, is Thurman Thomas a better football player if Scott Norwood makes a field goal? And so to me, those arguments go out the window. Those teams were great. Those players are so many of them are Hall of Famers. Those memories are very vivid to me.
It said something about you. And obviously, I understand coming from a family that's been rooted in the Bills and to a lesser degree, the Yankees. But it says something about you to go these 20 years and still be as committed, and you're rocking your Bills gear right now. I mean, were there any times over the course of the last 2 decades with how this organization was run and some of the ineptitude, and I wouldn't even call it ineptitude, just regime just not being able to figure it out? What kept you so enamored with being a Bills fan?
Matt, I'll say it for you. I think ineptitude is a pretty good word in some cases. I don't want to sound corny and cliche. It's in your DNA. I mean, I'm a Bills fan. I couldn't see myself being. Who else would I root for? The Steelers. I mean, that I have respect for a lot of fan bases, but I'm a Bills fan, and if you're a fan of a team, you're with them in good times and bad, and you have that belief. I can't believe it's taken quite this long to get back to relevancy in the NFL, but it never wavered. No, and I was just even thinking about it this morning. I look, for so many reasons. Obviously, sports play such a small role in what's going on right now, and I wish everyone safety and good health, and my condolences to anyone who's been impacted by this. But I hope we get back to playing, because this is an exciting team. I really, really believe that. And I really want to see what this team can be, because we're young. We've got a lot of good pieces. I feel like it's really sort of coming together in a way that it did back in the mid '90s. So let's hope the country gets back on track. But I'm anxious to see where this team can be.
So thank you for joining us. If you're just clicking on the link here, my name is Matt Parrino. He is Kevin Connors from ESPN, and it's a cool connection here, because not only is Kevin a big Bills fan, but he's also a big Syracuse Orange fan. And obviously nyupsyracuse.com. We love having anybody that's a fan of both teams to just get a chance to chat, because one of the big things I believe is I really like getting the fan has evolved so much over the last 2 decades. I mean, social media has obviously, done a big, played a big role in that. But some of the, analysis and some of the just, dialogue that's out there on social media about really furthers the conversation. And I love just diving in. It just so happens that you're a little bit of both, a fan and obviously at ESPN. What's it like being at ESPN and being a Bills fan? The sports mecca, and then when you kind of get in conversation with people and you tell them who your team is, how do those conversations go, if you will?
With Syracuse, I'm in the heart of UConn country. We got a lot of UConn fans, so it's kind of more of a here's the Syracuse guy, or Seth Greenberg and I always joke around about that. He knows what a passionate fan I am. So there's good-natured joking around. The Bills I've almost been a sympathetic person to people there because of how difficult it's been in terms of wins and losses the past 12 years that I've been at ESPN. But there's obviously great respect for someone who's a fan of a team that has struggled, and I've never wanted any of that, sympathy or anything like that. It's something that I wear proudly. Chris Berman's obviously a big Bills fan. We have other Ariel Helwani is a big Bills fan. I didn't know that until recently. So we're pretty well represented. We're a vocal minority, but it's kind of been fun to be identified with a team, and certainly is the case now with us getting relevant on a national level.
If you guys have any questions for Kevin, please feel free to drop them in the comment section. I do see a few team questions, so we'll get a little bit more into that. But before we do, I want to start with Josh Allen, because there was a little bit of a conversation going on, as there usually is in these live chats, about Josh Allen. And I'd like your thoughts on, where you landed on him as a prospect, and when the Bills landed him 3 years ago and 2.5 years ago, and where you are now entering year 3 for Josh Allen. Where do you stand on him?
So I'll give you the background here. I actually got to interview Josh before the draft. It was a satellite interview, and I spoke with him. And obviously the Bills were in the market for a quarterback there, and I thought it might be a possibility. And he was, as anyone who covers the team or gets to see them regularly, he's so engaging. He's so likable. So I was excited when they took him. Obviously, his size was great arm strength. Everyone knows about that. Maybe even joke around about that a little bit. The fact that he played in cold weather was inviting to me. So now we get him. It has not gone as smoothly as some of the. But here's the thing in the NFL. We've been spoiled recently. There was a time where when you drafted a quarterback in the first round, they sat and they learned, and it was a process. And then it sort of got to the point where all of these guys were so ready to play in the NFL that the expectation was, if you're taken in the top 10, 15 picks and you don't provide returns right away, you're a bust. to me, it was going to take a little bit of time. He didn't play in a big-time system. He's coming into the NFL where he didn't have a ton of weapons. It was going to take a little time. Will I tell you that he gets an A+ to me in the first 2+ years of him being with the Bills? No. But have I seen enough to say that this guy has shown me that he's going in this direction, that he wants to be the leader of this football team, that he wants to be the face of the franchise, and that he's shown that he can win and help get us to the playoffs? Obviously. And so I know that there was one comment about, there's no sure things in getting Stefon Diggs. I mean, to me, Stefon Diggs is a sure thing. And you've got to give a young quarterback pieces. So now we're in year 3. And now it's time for Josh to really produce. And you can't have these moments where you fumble the football making selfish, unadvisable plays. You've got to be consistent. And right now he's got a number 2 in John Brown, who is as good a number 2, I think, as you could hope for. Cole Beasley is your number 3. Now it's on Josh. But up until this point, to me, I think I've really liked what I've seen for the most part.
I think that it's interesting that the way that they've groomed him and brought him along, it gives him the kind of runway that from a fan's perspective, you have to be so excited about, because you've seen a couple real high points, but there's so many areas of his repertoire to improve that just probably makes you think, okay, like you mentioned, he came in very raw out of Wyoming. The kind of talent level that he was going up against at the college level was nothing near what he was facing at the pro level his first year. Not to mention, look at his supporting cast around him, an offensive line that was pieced together, a couple receivers that are not even in the fold anymore, Kelvin Benjamin, Zay Jones. And you fast forward to now, the improvements that they made in year 2. And I think that speaks to your point that there should be a lot of excitement and expectation. And we asked Josh on the conference call last week about, what this means in terms of heightened pressure in 2020. And he said that what he usually says about that the only people he cares about their opinion are the guys in the locker room. He doesn't look at it as pressure. He looks at it as, he's excited about it. Do you like the mentality that he has and the way that he's kind of shirked a lot of the outside noise and the narrative about him and really made it about the team and what he needs to do week in and week out and to improve? And also, when he does make mistakes, he's been pretty consistent about owning it.
Big time. I mean, I think if you want to take issue with some things that have happened on the field, that's up to you. I mean, from what I've seen from him off the field, how he's conducted himself, how he has embraced the role of leader on this team, I mean, A+. I mean, I just, you're closer to it, Matt, than I am, but I haven't seen anything that's made me say, I don't know about that. I mean, to me, he's kind of been the model teammate, the model citizen in the NFL. I've been super impressed with him. Now, again, he has those moments in games where he doesn't protect the football, and he there's a costly fumble, and you say, "Oh my God!" Or he's trying to force in a pass where he's running right and he's trying to throw it back to his left across the field, and you say, "When are you going to learn you can't do that?" I'm with Bills fans who have a problem with that. But again, what is he, 24 years old, 25 right. years old? I mean, to have this expectation that he's going to come into the league and be Peyton Manning when I'm not even sure Peyton Manning was Peyton Manning, that at that stage of his career, I don't think it's realistic. But having said that now, to use your word, any runway for excuses, it's now over. Now you've got a Maserati on one side of the line of scrimmage, and on the other side, you've got 2 pretty capable race cars there too. So now it's time for Josh to eliminate those mistakes to a degree and be a guy who can have us take the next step as a franchise. There's no question.
All right. So for anybody just joining us, I'm Matt Parrino. He's Kevin Connors from ESPN. Huge Bills fan. Thank you so much for joining me today. I want to shift to a lot of the moves that have been made this offseason. And obviously in free agency, most of the work was done on the defensive side of the ball. And which I think tells you something in that the Bills still believe that even though they were a bottom third offense last year, the continuity potential that's being built within the offensive line and obviously at receiver and running back and tight end especially is good enough to go into 2020 as is with the addition of Stefon Diggs. What do you think right now, looking at everything that they've done on both sides of the ball, is the biggest need left for the Bills?
I think on offense, look, you can never have enough offensive line depth. Are we done there? I don't think so. I think that that'll be something addressed in the draft. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if we make any more free agency moves, unless necessary when camp comes around. I could see running back being an area where we either kick the tires on a veteran in free agency you could get on a team-friendly deal, or within the draft. I think that there are some pretty good running backs who might be around in the second, third, fourth round. Look, we did pretty well with a third-round pick last year, so it remains to be seen. I don't think it's a big splash. I don't think we go sign. I can't even think of any like a Melvin Gordon type. Right. To me, that just didn't fit what we were looking to do. But if there's a guy who, a la Frank Gore, right, who you might want to bring in on a short-term deal if you don't address it within the draft, possibly, I could see running back being a spot. And then, defensively, like similarly, you can never have enough depth in the defensive backfield. You can never have enough depth on the defensive line. Would a pass rusher be nice to take in the second round if there's a quality pass rusher there? I think that's certainly an area that they might address.
All right, so we have a great synopsis there. We have a great question here from Anthony, who asks all-time favorite Bills player, and this is I think a lot of Bills fans are judged on this question. So you're on the spot here, Kevin.
God, I know, and that's so tough because the easy answer for a guy named Kevin O'Neal Connors is to say Jim Kelly, right? I mean, that's an easy one for me. And of course, Jim Kelly will always be, if he's not 1A, he's 1C. I can't boil it down to one. This is a cop-out, but it's Kelly, it's Thurman Thomas, and it's Bruce Smith. If you're making me pick one, it would probably be Thurman Thomas.
Okay, so because that, I almost feel for you as a Bill. When was your first earliest memory as a Bills fan? Like the 80s or?
Oh yeah, okay. I mean, I've posted them to Facebook to Twitter before. I mean, I've got pictures of me from Christmas wearing an O.J. Simpson jersey.
Oh wow, okay.
So in hindsight. But no, I don't go back that far. So yeah, I mean, earliest Bills memory is probably Joe Cribbs, Jerry Butler, Joe Ferguson. Just remembering that we didn't get Bills games very often, especially on Long Island when those teams were around. I saw them play the Jets twice a year, and if they played the Giants. So, but those teams would have been the first memories that I have.
Mm-hmm. So a few eras here, and the latest era. Let's take the last 2 decades. And there's been some really fun players that have come along for a lot of teams that obviously weren't given a lot of team success, but some individuals that left an indelible mark. I mean, 2 off the top of my head, Kyle Williams and Fred Jackson. Of this era, of this century, which Bills player kind of stands out to you? You could say J.P. Lossman. Nobody's going to judge me.
Yeah, Fred would be a guy, there's no question. And I got to interact with him a little bit on social media, which was neat. And, he was a Bill throughout his whole entire career. I don't think he played anywhere else, right?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'd have to look it up. I think you were right.
He was kind of a guy who, small school in Iowa, makes it to the NFL against the odds, becomes a really good Bill. He was great in the community. He would be a guy that definitely comes to mind. Kyle, of course, is another really good one.
He actually played his last season. I forgot about this in Seattle.
That's right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know what? Yeah, it probably would be Fred Jackson. Yeah.
All right. So we've been going about 25 minutes here. I want to wrap it up with 2020 expectations, because one of the big, the fun things to talk about this offseason for Bills fans is the exit of Tom Brady from the division. And all of a sudden the Bills being elevated by a lot of people as, the odds on favorite to win the AFC East next year. And obviously Vegas still believes in Bill Belichick quite a bit. But as a Bills fan, seeing all the moving parts and what they've done in Miami, and obviously Sam Darnold and Jets and Adam Gase are still going on down in New York. Where are you kind of early on here before the draft feeling where the Bills can be in 2020?
I mean, I said this last week to someone. I mean, if anything short of winning the division to me is a disappointment. And I just really believe that that's where we are right now. And I don't think that's a crazy take. We were a playoff team a season ago. We got better. We added one of the 10, 20 most dynamic playmakers in the NFL to our offense. You've got a quarterback that's got a playoff game under his belt. You've got a team that's got a playoff game under its belt. And the Patriots lose their leader and their quarterback. Look, are the Patriots still going to be good? Of course. Belichick, this notion that they're going to tank for Trevor Lawrence to me is ludicrous. Of course, the Patriots are going to be good. Anything short of winning the division to me for the Bills is a disappointment, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with thinking that way going in. We've kind of been reluctant to do that for the longest time because, gosh, golly gee, we're just getting there. We're there. And if we're not there, then people need to be held accountable. So I don't think there's any problem with saying this team should be poised to win the division. And if they don't, it's a disappointment.
I am with you there, and I am picking them right now to win the division. I really like what the Miami Dolphins have done, and I really like their head coach, Brian Flores. I think was the real winner out of the recent assistants to leave New England. Obviously, Matt Patricia struggling early on in Detroit. But I like they paid some money in free agency, but they brought in some really, I think, bang for your buck type guys that I think are really going to transform that defense, going to be really good. And they were obviously good last year with getting 5 wins out of that roster. I think that they have a really good situation going on there. But he is Kevin Connors. Thank you so much for joining me. And I want to really quick shout out. Give him a follow on social media, Bills Mafia. It's at Kev Connors, ESPN. You are going to want to give him a follow because all season long he interacts with Bills fans. It's a real fun time. And I also was told by the Pinto tailgate guys, they wanted me to make sure that you knew that they are excited to have you come next season and lead the charge in the ketchup and mustard ceremony. Have you ever been to it live?
I have not. Look, I'm just glad that they want me to be the one doing the squirting and not getting squirted. So, if I'm still standing when it comes time to do that, then I'm all in. I'm excited to get up there for a game this year. And look, I realize that there are some times where I'm a diehard Bills fan. I believe in the team, and maybe some people think that comes off as being a homer or an apologist. I love the team. I love interacting with the fans. I love what the team means to the community and vice versa. And so it's nothing more than excitement coming through whenever I do go on some social media rampages. So I always enjoy interacting with Bills fans and, of course, folks like you, Matt, who cover the team. So anytime I can help or interact, let's get after it.
Awesome. Well, Kevin, thank you so much. Stay safe. Best to you and your family, and to all Bills fans out there. Same to you. Stay safe. Keep it locked on nyupinsyracuse.com, and we will continue to bring you Bills content over the course of the next few weeks as we lead up to, all of a sudden, 2.5 weeks here, NFL draft. Thanks again, Kevin.
Matt, you got it anytime. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.